Hi, I'm Roscoe and welcome to EV Marketplace on a Wednesday night. If it's 6:30 on a Wednesday, it's got to be EV night. And thanks for watching if you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook. And if you're watching on catch up later on, thanks for joining us because another great show tonight. We've got Brendon Green, who's General Manager Automotive Services from Pickles Auction House. And what are we talking to Pickles? Well, they've led the way in used EVs. And as you'll see tonight, talking to Brendon, who we caught up earlier this week, and we've got in the second half of this show, they've done some magnificent work, and they've had an incredible month in March, what we're now calling massive month or monumental month or incredible March for EVs. We'll look back in years to come and go, wow, what happened? And we can't wait to get his feelings about what they were doing down at the auction house, because they have done some amazing work for their clients and used EV buyers in the last couple of years. We'll take a look back at that as well, have a chat to Brendon about what's going on there. And anyone that's promoting used EVs, we're more than happy to promote and have on the show and talk to about what's happening in the pointy end. Joining me tonight, hey, what an incredible world it is in the EV space at the moment. I know your mandate is General Manager of Automotive Services for Pickles, expands out to all sorts of cars. But were you ever expecting anything like we've seen? And do you think you'll ever see it again?
Well, good question. Just crazy times. It's hard to describe the last 6 weeks. If it's been 6 weeks, just absolutely off the charts. For us, we made a deliberate play in the last back in 2023 to start to understand EVs a bit more, with a view to thinking, it's going to get there in the future, and then all of a sudden the hockey stick attraction to EVs in the past 6 weeks has just been hard to fathom. Yeah, correct. Hard to fathom. So, we've seen at times, where things have ticked up slowly over time, and when the movement away from Ford Falcons and Holden Commodores to Corollas stuff when fuel prices spike, but nothing like this. Nothing like this.
Don't age yourself that much. That was a big transition, but that was a long time ago. Right?
It was a while ago, but I was there to see that. But bit of water under the bridge. I was there for GFC and COVID, everything. It's been lots of things to watch over the years.
I know we've tried to been catching up for a while, just casually chatting for the last month, and I haven't been able to get in touch with you. You've been all over the place doing radio and all sorts of things. What's been the sudden demand from Pickles' perspective, for your opinion?
Well, look, I think we just placed ourselves early days to be, particularly with the batteries. We started testing batteries in 2023. We didn't know much about them, and we just could see them more customers asking us questions. We wanted to know more. So we just started off our own bat testing, a couple of partners we tested with, and then went live with the Avaloo solution, which has been really good across Australia and really helped us to understand. So, we weren't experts. We wanted to become experts because our customers are asking all these questions. And then, lo and behold, 2 years later, we're selling quite a lot. So because we sell a lot on behalf of big fleet companies, big financiers, OEMs, councils, not-for-profits, and corporates. So they're kind of expecting us to know more, right? So we wanted to position ourselves as being, able to provide insights and thought leadership and the like. So then I think what happened, we were pretty consistent with our message out there that the EVs were good. The batteries were really healthy. We had a good volume coming through. So then it was, we're able to get to our stats really easily. We've got a data analytics business that gives us really good insights. So being able to provide that quickly to media outlets and others that want information.
That's been great. No, that's been great. You've got it on hand. They suddenly the interest has been high, and look, it's been fantastic. There's been a lot of negative stories in the last couple of years. We've been fighting hard. All of a sudden, they've been all on board. So I just hope it lasts for a little bit longer. And I'm thrilled that Pickles has taken this position in terms of battery testing, leading the way here. This is a picture of the site. One of their typical listings. We're going to just jump straight through to it because it shows picture number 2 in many cases, most cases where they can, there's a picture of the battery test from the Avaloo team from Test EV. And that's a fantastic initiative because you've led the way in that area. And we'll circle back to the business again, just what you're focusing on, what you do. But from the perspective of a buyer in terms of a dealer or a retail buyer even now, that just makes the world of difference. We were chatting earlier about how important it is to know about 75% of the value of the car, how it stacks up. And this is a brilliant initiative. So all kudos to Pickles. And from our perspective, we're looking as a market commentator, looking at the whole used EV market. And for us, anything that really promotes used EVs and the credibility and gives buyers, I think the confidence is the key word we've all used now, more confidence in used EVs. And this is the way to do it, right? But in terms of Pickles' business, EVs, again, you've alluded to it. They've played a small part up until now, but yeah, your clients have been asking what led the demand really.
Yeah, so I guess being very close, a big part of our business is fleet and government.
Yeah,
That's over 50% of what we sell. So it was really important that those two big they're big buyers of EVs at the end of the day,
yeah,
and they've got a lot of expectations. They've got customers at various levels that want those cars,
yeah,
and there's the ESG piece that's pushing along corporate to think about it more, the government's kind of leading the way with they've
yeah,
got climate teams and the like. So they're heading down that direction. So we wanted to make sure we could stand up and have dedicated areas. So
yeah,
we've got a dedicated EV auction, EV and hybrid auctions
yeah,
we've got now. It's been around for a long time, right? But having the EVs come through and so we can focus in on those. So, but then there's cars that are sold right throughout the live auctions, whether they're government fleet auctions
yeah,
as well. So they're not. It's not all just EV auctions that we run, but
yeah,
we want to
yeah,
have dedicated pathways for people to find them. So there's like a landing page on our website, so people can find them nice and easily. And there's blogs on there and other bits
yeah,
and pieces as well, which just helps people that coming to Pickles for the first time. We get visited by a lot of dealers, but also a lot of consumers that hit us at the same time,
yeah,
just looking for, and that's always been the case with Pickles. Interestingly, think about ICE cars. We would typically sell about 70% of our ICE cars to dealers and 30% to mums and dads.
yeah,
It was actually the inverse before we put the certificates on there, because dealers are all a bit nervous about it. We're selling
yeah,
70% of used EVs to mums and dads, and then 30% to the dealers. So for us, it was a big education piece along the way to bring the dealers along, and I think
yeah.
they're there now, and they're now buying, saying, "Hey, if I don't have EVs in my life, I'm not getting phone calls at me." Right? So it's changed 100, it's changed 180 degrees for a lot of those guys.
And you can put that down to a large part to the battery testing. Yeah,
I think so. Like it's
yeah,
they're able to grab those certificates. They can there's the tile that you showed as well, but there's
yeah,
also a PDF document that they can download and look at it. Mums and dads
yeah,
can actually do that as well, and so that enables them to use that back with the transaction. Particularly the dealers. I think they had people coming into their yard when they have the odd Tesla, and they'd say, "What's can you tell me about the battery?" And they go,
yeah.
"Look, but it's still in warranty. A problem. You'll be right with Tesla, won't
You'll
you?"
be right.
And
Yeah, yeah,
was the story for a lot of them. Plus, a number of them got burnt during the COVID period when
yeah,
used EVs were really scarce and they were paying top dollar, and then there was some repricing of OEM, by some of the OEMs, and the used EV prices tumbled back down. Plus, supply sorted itself out,
yeah,
so it was going to stay as escalated. And so I think a few of them bought some EVs, got a bit burnt,
yeah,
and that's a really, I mean, that graph tells it, right? That yellow line peaking at
yeah.
180%.
I was going to say, well, we'll use this chart to look at the sudden sort of transition to the sudden peak upwards, but also just hark back again to that, that post-COVID 22 period. And the
Yeah,
yellow line is there, the EV price index, and these aren't outright numbers. These are index numbers on a relative sense between ICE cars and EVs. So, but the
yeah,
comparison makes interesting reading because the real spike up in EVs after those first cars came out, and dealers got a bit burnt, didn't they? They were getting some good
they did.
premiums on cars that they couldn't be sourced new, and
Yeah,
that spike in 22 shows that on the price index. Yeah,
yeah, and I think that was an adjustment to some RRPs and supply. They were the
yeah,
two catalysts to, So we were really pleased when the start of 20 or end of 23 when
yeah,
prices started to stabilize. I guess it did dip a little bit, but that was more
yeah,
seasonality where it dipped below 100, and then it sort of stayed and plateaued at sort of around the 111
yeah,
odd percent ish, and sort of dipped and the like. But and then it's that last little dip there right at the end of the graph is
yeah,
going from March up to April, and I can tell you April's now upwards of it's nearly 120%, right? So April itself has gone through the roof. So that's all of March, and it didn't, we only sort of had 2 weeks of the hyper focus on those used EVs. When everybody said they all of a sudden need to buy one.
Amazing times. And so you've seen that we've seen it privately, and you've seen it through the dealer network as well. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, look, it's a combination of dealers and private buyers buying them, right? So, but I think, and so I think the dealers were a little bit nervous about getting back into used EVs. We originally, when we first started monitoring things, I think of our top 100 dealers, there was only like 30% had actually bought a used EV. Now our top 100 used dealers, about 80% have bought a used EV. So they're all getting more with the program. It's taken them. They're not launching in and buying 10s and 20s and 30s. They're just buying 1s and 2s and 3s to get familiar with it. It's a different asset class. Some of them said, I feel like I need to employ someone that works in the Apple store to sell these cars. It's a different product, right? Which is an interesting take. But it's good to hear it, good to hear them getting familiar and, repurposing those certificates they get with with our cars. They can use that to educate Joe Smith when he walks in the door, to tell him about the battery, the health, the comparisons, all those sort of things. So the battery health piece for us has been really significant in growing confidence and just transparency in the transaction at the end of the day. I think you're crazy if you're not selling a used EV with some form of certificate now. It's
Exactly. And it gives the dealers confidence when they're buying the stock or trading in the stock, to have a test and make sure that they've got their assets sitting on the floor that is workable, and they've got confidence when they're selling it as well. And this is all, of course, from your QAR report, which again, the most recent quarter has just come out, produced by Pickles, and some fantastic information, data, and insights. So I think this is brilliant. It's one thing to actually promote EVs, but for us as an observer and the general industry to see this data put out there amongst the community, promoting the trends and seeing the trends live. And we just picked up on that, that last burst of energy in the last month of the quarter in March, and then it's carried on through to April. But yeah, just brilliant from your perspective to put that out there. And again, I noticed that it looks like it's a third-party data company that's putting this forward. So again, to have that validity, and then these sorts of numbers that are coming through. So brilliant that you're putting that out there from my perspective. But yeah, this chart for me, the clearance rates tells the story, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. So just so all the data, we've got a data analytics business called Dative Insights. We own it, and so they help us with everything. So they produce a heap of other things like valuations, residual value, calculations, all of that sort of stuff. They power through us. So we're able to leverage that in getting the data, which probably feel like we've got a bit of an unfair advantage to others, with having that in the kit, right? But here's a clear example. This is our clearance rates.
Yeah,
going back to the start of 25, where we were lucky to break 40% most of the time, and then March just all of a sudden it got to about 66%, I think it was. And then the last 2 weeks of March, you couldn't not sell an EV pretty much. Like it was just they were just making moon money, and to the point where they're making $10,000 and $12,000 more 1 week than what they were the previous week. We had vendors just going, "This is incredible. How can I send you more?" Right. So the problem is, I think people are trying to work out, okay, if I send you more, I don't have those EVs to offset my heavy fuel ICE costs at the moment. So it's a bit of a catch-22, right? Prices are through the roof. So if you've got early generation EVs, now's the time to sell them, particularly if you can, because look, I think prices have elevated. We might get to that a little bit later. Will they stay there forever and a day? It's hard to tell, but we might cover that a bit later.
It's a bit like anything. When there's been increases, you might have seen up to 10, 15, 20% just within the space of a month. Yeah, you've got to question how sustainable that is. And the last thing we want is to see dealers get stung again holding stock that, really, from my perspective, you don't want to see a recycling of that, anything that might knock the confidence out of the industry again. So, but again, the proof's in the pudding. The prices shot up. The clearance rates from your perspective have doubled. That is an outstanding statistic from an auction house perspective, isn't it? So, as an aside, who set the reserves on some of those cars previously?
Our vendors always set every reserve. So we
Okay.
put a valuation forward and they
Yeah.
can align with it, or they might say, actually, I think it's $1,000 more.
All right.
Normally, we're pretty well aligned. We're not out by miles. If
Yeah.
we're out by miles, we tend to say, actually, we're unlikely to sell your car. Don't bother sending it to us.
Yeah.
So you get some people, with some pretty high expectations. It's not
Yeah.
not normally worth going through the process, but most of our vendors we work with for a long period of time, they understand us. Our valuations are genuine. And so normally the valuation and the reserve are pretty well aligned. Um, most of the time.
And yeah, this one also I wanted to show as well, just in terms of the numbers that are growing, again, off a small base, but it's great to keep these stats because these numbers will look like thousands in a couple of years' time as the market grows. But
Yep.
just it's good to hark back, even in the short space of time that you've been following it and dedicated to it, which again I'm thrilled about. And keeping these numbers, again, we'll look back and well, that's a 1,000% increase, I think, 43 to 400, something like that. Again,
Yes.
incredible numbers, but yeah, it's great to see that in a short space of time.
Yeah. I mean, look, Q1 26,
Mm,
half of that came in March. Like, we're
yeah,
nearly 200 cars in March. That was a record for us. I think prior to that, our record was in December last year of 140 or something like that. So for a month. So, we smashed the previous
yeah,
record from a volume perspective. Not sure I'm going to be able to back up in April because we sold a lot in March that we might have ordinarily gone through, and people
yeah,
have been holding on to stock a little bit. But I think we've already sold 80 for the month of March, or of April already. So we're well on the way again. But yeah, the volume just keeps growing, and as does the diversity. In
yeah.
terms of what we're seeing come through as well.
Mm.
Um,
I
uh,
put
you
that
know,
one up as well. Yeah, I put that chart up with the
a lot
diversity
of
of
yeah, a lot of Tesla product coming through, I guess.
yeah,
But being government aligned, a fair bit of Hyundai product as well.
mm,
So one of our big customers has been going through the sale of a lot of Kona product as well. So they've actually knocked Tesla off for the first time from a model
mm,
standpoint. So I think what we haven't seen just yet is a heap of the new Chinese brands.
yeah,
But again, normally it takes 2 to 3 to 4 years for us to see that
mm,
sort of stuff come through in volume. Same with PHEV. We aren't seeing a lot of PHEV just yet. We expect we
no,
will in due course. We've seen the odd Shark. We've seen a lot of the original Outlander type product
yeah,
that was washing through. But we'll expect to see more PHEV in the not too distant future, as we will more of the more Chinese made vehicles.
yeah,
So yeah, but a good mix. We've got we've got a luxury sale tonight. We've got a 25 plate Z Car 7 in there. It's the first Z Car we've seen, and it's had like 4,000 views already. Right, so
yeah,
so you can just see how these new products that come out. There's a lot of diversity out there in what you can look at these days. And something like that, we know is in really high demand. They've been
mm,
selling really well. So as soon as they come through to us, our website's quite powerful because we've got a lot of dealers and a lot of private people coming to us and looking at those sort of things. So there's 4,000 views on that. There's another 4,000 on a 25 plate Model Y long range as well. So
yeah.
equally there's 12,000 views on a 24 plate Huracan,
Yeah,
Lamborghini Huracan, right now.
yeah.
Different. I know we shouldn't be talking about ice cars
Yeah,
on this
this is
channel.
I normally ask my guests the EV aha moment, but I'm not going to put you to shame because I know you don't drive an EV. So, and I know part of your business is still ice cars. I saw that post on LinkedIn about the performance car as well. So, I
Yeah,
do respect the broad base of Pickles auctions business model just at the moment,
yeah.
right? So, but yeah, I won't cut that out. I'll leave it in. It's fine. Um,
No, I mean, ordinarily, most of our cars might only normally get 500 views, right? So even
yeah.
having 4,000 views on a Z car or a Model Y is extraordinary,
It
right?
is,
So,
yeah, that is
um,
outstanding. Yeah.
so
Saw the
yeah,
Google search go up. Yeah, the Google for EVs at the same time as the Google search for petrol prices went up. It was in that ABC article. I didn't pick it up again this time, but yeah, same. The search went off the dial. Our search on Amazing EV went up 100% during March as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
And I was curious if you could comment on whether you're seeing from the client's perspective, the fleets and your clients, whether they are diversifying away from Tesla or into some of the newer other brands as well. Do you get much noise from them about what the buzz is on some of the different brands that they like, including some of the new
Um,
Chinese ones? Mm,
Yeah, look, I think a lot of them have buying policies, or they've tendered previously as to who they can and can't buy from.
yeah,
So they've probably got to go through a cycle and come up for who they can buy from.
yeah,
So a lot of them have traditionally gone, particularly the governments, have gone back to the Kias and the Hyundais who are already
Yeah.
on there from an ICE perspective that were pre-approved. So it was easy for them to drop in the
Yeah.
Kona and the Ioniq and others. And so a lot of that's been sort of coming through. But I know BYD's out there, Nissan's out there, and then there'll be more like that'll keep going through because
Mm.
I know they're all actively looking at what makes up their fleet. And they know there's a lot more brand choice. So it's probably created a bit more work for the governments. The
Yeah.
fleets have got more flexibility. It's whatever the corporate would prefer. Again, 5 star, everything's got to be 5 star or they won't want to touch it.
Yeah.
But we'll see more and more diversity just flow through. I've been seeing a bit more Kia product flow through. I expect we'll see more BYD product flow
Yeah.
through, and the other mates, the Geely and Leap and
Yeah.
other brands, Z cars in time. So,
I was curious. Yeah, I didn't want to get too political, but yeah, some governments at some levels have different policies. Let me call them different policies about buying Chinese product, or apps or services. So I was curious to see if any of that bias had shown through still, but sounds maybe that they're a bit more considerate. There's a bit more consideration taken to Chinese EV and car makers than there is some other services. But we won't
yeah,
delve we won't go down too much down that political rabbit hole. So
no, but I think from we'll see more cars, more novated cars start to flow through
yeah,
too, because the XPT extension was 4 years ago. The average length of a novated lease is generally around 4 years.
yeah,
So there'll be a fair bit of diversity with the off lease novated vehicles that will start to flow through because they've
yeah,
got choice. They can choose where they want, right? They don't have to
yeah.
be government aligned
No,
necessarily. So we'll see a lot of diversity flow through. With some specific services to sell
yeah.
novated leases as they come to market, come to fruition. We'll pay out the balloon and give you an upfront valuation and all those kind of things. So
Mm.
we expect more and more diversity to flow through from the novated books that will start to mature soon too.
Yeah, and certainly on price. Look, EVs have taken a beating in the last year and a half. That's for sure. That there was some pretty good brackets and pricing maybe on Teslas from my perspective was starting to fit into some particular grooves, both at wholesale and retail level. So at least Tesla, although maybe they were 40-50% of the market, there was starting to get some categorization in there and some predictability and some reliability, which has been a good thing for buyers and sellers, albeit pretty heavyish, probably depreciation. But yeah, certainly sellers in the last month or so, if you timed it right, just by luck, you have had an opportunity to get something back closer to more realistic depreciation than you might have had in the last 12 months. And well, if nothing else for sellers, that's provided an opportunity as well. And again, I don't think buyers are getting a bad deal in the whole scheme of things.
No, no. It was interesting because you get asked about it. Well, particularly some of the media we got before this was about tell me about used EV sale
Yeah,
prices, and then they wanted to compare that to ICE prices and really try and kick them in the guts. Right? That was the
yeah,
the comparison because they were depreciating faster than ICE. So
yeah.
but they've all sort of jumped up by 10 or 15% from an RV perspective now.
Mm.
So I think they've pretty much lined ball with a lot of the ICE
Yeah,
cars.
I'd say so.
So,
That
which is great. That's a great news story because when you look at the total cost of ownership, and the fleets need to drill in and do that,
yeah.
it's that they've always got the cost factor hanging over their over their decision making.
The
So
hard
being
the
able
hard
to
part always yeah, the hard part's always for all the players in the industry, insurance companies, leaseors and sellers like yourself. They've been working on some models where a lot of the predictions of price have been reasonably formularized, and that gave some sense of reliability and expectancy about what would happen. So if that didn't happen, yeah, there's been a few shocks, but yeah, again, this last month hasn't helped, but at least it's a positive shock, not a negative one this time.
yeah,
So
correct. Yeah, certainly created. I think it's created more of an awareness for those
yeah,
that had really been quite close to it, and even we people that are I guess you could be looking at a fleet, and even if you're a fleet operator,
yeah,
you might have 5 cars in your fleet, right? But you
yeah,
still, and if you hadn't gone EV yet, well, what's to stop you going and buying a used one? Because it's still got 3 to 4
exactly,
years worth of warranty on it. You're going to reduce your running costs with fuel and maintenance.
exactly,
So, and you're only paying 60 to 70% of the new price, right? So you're probably only paying 50% six weeks
exactly.
ago, price. But now, there's still a big advantage for those people that want
Sure.
to jump to put their toe in the water from a fleet operator's
Yeah,
perspective. until we're used, there's nothing or less to be worried about.
I know. If many businesses could benefit from buying a used EV at 60 or 70,000 Ks and run it for 3 years, and it'd make a fantastic proposition instead of buying new. Again, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. I was curious.
And when we look at the battery health, I guess that's we've tested Model Ys with 230,000 Ks, Model 3s with 230 Ks, Polestars with 230,000 Ks, and they're all at 89, 88% battery health, right? So, I mean, they might only be 3 years old, but they've been hammered and they've been DC charged for almost probably, I mean, they'll be rideshare cars more than likely, and they would have been, charged with DC most of their life, but hasn't added to the degradation. So, we've been really fortunate with being able to test things and the data we get. The whole DC piece has really been that myth, that you're going to kill your battery. Now I know the manufacturers aren't necessarily.
We might be banging on. We might be banging on about this, but it all comes back to it. I just thought I'd just do a spot test. I hadn't looked at this one again. I just jumped on this one straight away while we're talking about it again. 2022 Hyundai Ioniq. The original Ioniqs are outstanding cars, and can't see the Ks on this one. Maybe you can see them, but
scroll down, you'll probably see them.
Scroll down, 32,000 Ks. So low Ks, but 97. That's like a brand new car. It probably does 1% in the first 2% in the first year anyway. It's basically brand new, 97.3%. Oh, that is outstanding, right?
Correct.
Let's not. Yeah, look. I mean, that's been one of the keys. I just wanted to see if you'd just seen any tick down in. Has it affected your ICE business in the last month? I haven't seen a big fall off, and I know the used EVs are a very small part, 1.5% of the whole used car market in Australia. So we're talking small numbers here, really encouraging results and a big spike because of the low volumes, really. I think the number of cars that were sold, and based on some stats I've seen recently, the number of cars sold, used EVs in March, was over 7,000, basically double the previous month. So it's pretty much wiped out a lot of the stock that was available for April and May, and we'll have some flow-on effects while new stock comes to market. But we didn't really see a big tick down in used ICE. Did you see much from your perspective?
No, look, I mean, we sell 70,000 cars a year.
Yeah,
2025, 1,000 were EVs, right? So we sell a lot of ICE at the end of the day. Where we have seen a bit more of a decline has been in petrol, rather than diesel. I think with diesel, there's still not a lot of choice. You'd expect with diesel at $3.30 and north of that sometimes, you'd expect it might have been worse. But there's still not a lot of. And let's face it, most of the diesel we sell a lot of Hilux, a lot of Ranger, a lot of vehicles. So we haven't really seen much change there. It's probably come off a little bit more in petrol than it has in diesel. I actually expected hybrid might have picked up a little bit more just in this economy, but I think you still got to put petrol in a hybrid. So I was surprised that the hybrid price didn't climb a little bit more, not in line with EV, but like some more. So look, we've seen a little bit of it, we've sort of flattening is the way we've termed the ICE vehicles. It's sort of flattened early because normally used vehicle prices climb right through to the end of March into Easter. And
this is a good
start to dip down a bit. But
this is usually a good quarter. Yeah, this is one of the best quarters of the year through this sort of trans Easter period, right? Yeah. So
look, there's still interest out there. It's just not quite as where we would normally expect it. But now we're going to go into a little bit of seasonality anyway, we call it in the used car market. So where it sort of dips going into winter, and then you're dealing with OEMs and dealers offering some really good deals leading into June and the like. So it always softens. This is typically the softest part of the used vehicle market. So I guess it just sort of flattened early from an ICE perspective is what we're calling it.
And I just want to just touch briefly before we go, and thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. Just on the broad base of your assets that are flowing through Pickles, and we've seen a lot of interest and uptake, and suddenly, and there's a lot of work being done in the big heavy truck sector, and there's a lot of arguments being put out publicly between those that are for and those that are against, and I guess heightened totally by the extraordinary, ridiculous cost of diesel at the moment. The focus is back pure on the heavy truck sector. So interesting to see the comments from your corporate director, general manager on the truck side of things. So, again, what are you seeing in that area?
Yeah, look, we're certainly, this kind of time, people start to rethink. They might have
Yeah,
looked at EV or even hybrid, I suppose, going back over the last few years, and found it hard to make a case for it. But
yeah,
I think now people are revisiting that. Diesel costs. We're hearing a lot of distress because we have
yeah,
in that logistics segment, because we have
yeah,
advisory businesses, which is where if there's liquidation matters and they work come through accountants and stuff, they
yeah,
come through us that way too. A lot of people looking to diversify their fleet. They're already doing that. There's a lot of customers of ours that have already been on that journey, that have been diversifying fleets, whether that's in last mile delivery
yeah,
solutions, from the big shopping supermarkets and like, or in the full blown logistics
yeah,
businesses. But we just haven't had any stock to see what the
yeah,
actual impact would have been on a used EV when they were flowing through. We've had some really good cases of owner operators coming and buying them from us and then
mm,
putting them to work in their own like charitable organisations to convert from an ICE into an
yeah,
EV. That's been some really good news stories. Um, but I know there's a few EVs going to flow through later in the month of
mm,
April or early May. So EV trucks, that is, and they're just talking smaller trucks, so not
yeah.
the really big heavies. And I think that's a quite a different conversation, the big heavy stuff, because the cost new is right up there. So I think that can be,
Mm.
there's certainly some Winrows and others that are doing plenty of stuff out there
Yeah,
in the marketplace, and other providers, and some really good test cases of, is it the Blue Scope truck running up and down Mount Ousley
mm,
and delivering to Sydney and all those kind of things. We're really exciting to see that stuff progressing.
yeah.
But I guess there's some people sort of watching those use cases to roll out.
I
But
see. Yeah, I was going to
we'll
say,
see.
I see Coles and IKEA all over the place. Those last mile deliveries all around the electric
Yeah,
trucks, and yeah, maybe look, if EVs have got anything to go by, batteries are lasting a lot longer than we thought. The cars themselves are going to last a lot longer than we thought, because of the battery life and the battery reliability. Maybe those trucks will be on the road for hundreds of thousands of miles. They'll just upgrade the battery when they need to. It'll maybe they won't get the flow through of used EV trucks, but that remains to be seen. We know there's plenty of options out there
yeah,
in China and in buses and trucks. So yeah, I can't
yeah.
wait to see a lot more of that action here as well. So
Yeah, it'll come for sure. Like it's
yeah,
just, and they probably won't be cycled so quickly through
yeah,
as we've seen with the car fleet, the passenger fleet, I guess. But they will definitely come. We already see them from time to time from some
yeah.
customers. So yeah, we're looking forward to that market maturing too.
I got time just before we go for a quick plug for Pickles. Tell us what you can do from a private buyers. We've probably got mostly private buyers, but we might have some government or corporate dealers or anyone. How can people get involved with Pickles in terms of buying or selling? Mm,
Yeah, so the best way is to just jump on the website.
mm,
These days, our website is everything.
yeah,
2 million visitors to it every single year. Sorry, 2 million, 2 million 2 million views
yeah,
every single month, I should say. So, huge amount of people actually coming through and looking at different things. So, the best way if you want to find the EVs, if you clicked on that Pickles icon up in the top left
yeah,
there, and then under the buy option, sorry, just
yeah,
under the buy option, just
yeah.
next to it. Yep, and then go down to hybrid and electric vehicles in that
If
in
I
the
can
first
find it, if I can
click,
find it, anyone can find it. So
and then
mm,
click electric cars,
that's it.
bang, and you'll see everything now. Everything that we've got that's listed from an EV perspective. So if you just scroll down, you'll see lots of different things in there. There's some
You
unconverted
get a few F-150 Lightnings there as well.
unconverted F-150 Lightnings that might be there at the moment, but not a So, but then you'll see the rest of the vehicles come through. So
Yeah, cool.
you'll find the majority will have a certificate like that
Yeah.
on the vehicle as well.
That's pretty good going too. I mean, you can't help but stop and have a look. I do a bit of work on, and I must spend some more time on the site myself, because just to familiarise myself with pricing and battery health. But that's pretty amazing. And an e-tron done 2023 e-tron with 26,000 k's, 94%. So
Yep.
amazing. You can't help but just to be amazed. And of course, yeah, there's a bit of action, bit more action there without going too far into it, into some of the crash damaged cars. There's been bit of an uptake there and interest in Wovey cars as well, right?
Yeah, look, I mean that's a difference. So
Yeah.
we're selling, and we sold 1,000 EVs undamaged last year, and we sold about 1,000 written off ones on behalf of the major insurers as well. So there again, there's a link under the salvage section of the website to go and see all those cars. There's been a lot of there's repairable cars that you can repair and pull back on the road, and there's ones that are stat write-offs where you can't because they're too badly been out of shape. So that's a completely different arm to Pickles, but we're just seeing a lot big uplift in the repairable cars as well. People that might be able to buy one and then find the parts to repair those cars, and equally we've got people coming and buying them the stat write-offs to harvest the batteries, to think about repurposing those batteries for home application and all that stuff. Which that stuff will play out, and maybe that's another separate conversation for another day.
I know.
Right, so
if someone can find a use for an EV, they'll find a use. They'll get it back on the road, or they'll put that battery to work somewhere else. There's no doubt about it. It's a completely different world. But hey, thanks for joining us, Brendon. That's been brilliant. So all the best to you, and I hope Pickles keeps succeeding and kicking some great goals in terms of EVs, because it's good to see you leading the way in promoting the used EV space, and we're running along behind you. So well done with the EV battery testing and generally just promoting that amongst your clients as well. So thanks for joining me, and hopefully we can catch up again soon. So
thanks for having me on, Ross. Appreciate
thanks very much. That was Brendon Green, the General Manager, Automotive Solutions at Pickles Auctions. Great insights, and they've had a bumper month. He's been everywhere talking EVs and the interest that they had from their dealers, and everybody has just pumped up prices, pumped up demand, and pumped up clearance rates. So he's a happy man at the moment. Pickles aren't sponsoring us tonight, but we're great to have Brendon on board this evening as well. We've got some breaking news, and probably one of the biggest show, if not the big show, is starting in a couple of days. That's the Beijing Auto Show. Do a quick preview of that, because that is the biggest auto show on earth, and everyone's either going to it, studying it, looking at it, and can't wait to get amongst that. So, of course, we're interested, and we can't wait to see what's new on display, new concept cars, new models, just incredible. It's got to be the biggest show in town. We've also got some incredible data for you tonight we found from, well, the biggest player in Australia. They've done some incredible research, so can't wait to have a look at some of that. We've started to skim some of that out, and we've found some interesting facts from their research about what customers, or different types of customers, and see if you fit into one of those categories as well. So thanks for joining us for your weekly dose of EV deals, data, and discovery on EV Marketplace. So let's get into it with breaking EV news this week. And of course, it's the Beijing Auto Show starting in, 1 day, 16 hours, 26 minutes and 36 seconds. It's got to be the biggest show in town. I can't wait for it every year. This is one of the things that we started to see on YouTube that really got our interest going in EVs and Chinese EVs and the innovations and all the politics going on with tariffs and everything a couple of years ago. So can't wait to see what's coming out of there. But just now it's called, of course, the Auto China Show 2026. G'day, Joe. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. It has been a busy week, and thank you for joining us. But Joe, you've been in and out of China. You know what it's like, but a few other colleagues are heading off overseas. We haven't been. We get to see it vicariously on TV, but have just been fascinated by the scale of some of these places. Absolutely incredible. I just can't believe sometimes. Check this out. Again, it alternates, correct me if I'm wrong, between Shanghai and Beijing. The scale and the images from a couple of years ago, 380,000 square meters. It's numbers, but the pictures tell some incredible stories of what's been going on over the years. Just the people, the cars, the innovation. It's got to be the place. It's absolutely incredible. New manufacturers, old OEMs. I absolutely can't believe it sometimes. But for me, sometimes it's also the venue as well. This is incredible exhibition halls that they built. It's just absolutely monumental. I don't know. it's a monumental effort to just get around the show, let alone see everything as well. Can't believe it. But I'll tell you what introduced me mostly to this show was a couple of years ago was Mark Rainford from Inside China Auto. And so maybe if you wait till Saturday or Sunday, if you're familiar with Mark's work.
Auto, welcome to the Beijing Auto Show 2024. Today we're going to do what we traditionally do at these auto shows. We're going to go for a walk around all the stands at the show. I'm going to show you all brand new cars that are going on here in Beijing. Apparently we've got 119 global launches today. I'm not sure we've got exactly that many, but we're going to show you everything.
So when he says a small walk, this is a 2-hour video, 2 or 3 hour video, which he might break down, goes to every stand, every car, everything, just absolutely phenomenal. So keep an eye out for that. I'm sure he'll have something up on YouTube. If you don't follow Mark already, subscribe, because he's done some mega show walkthroughs for YouTube. It got me interested. We had a chat to him last year before the show. Incredible stuff, and then had a chat to have a look at him, look at some of the stuff he's done last year. I hope he'll be back. I think he moved to the UK, but I'm pretty sure he's still covering it. I'm pretty sure he'll be back. Everyone I know has gone to China, and we might have some updates after the show next week, after the big show on our show next week. Just trying to find out what's going on, what's hot and what's not. But in the meantime, don't forget AmazingEV, our very own dedicated EV marketplace. We are just completely short of listings at the moment. There's just still a big black hole where the listings used to be. I think we're going to have a quieter month for sales in April, just by virtue of the fact that with over 7,000, double the amount of sales in March and leading into early April, just not that stock in the $10,000 to $20,000 to $30,000 range, where it was a sweet spot for a while. They've just all been taken up. We're following a few sellers on Facebook and a few other avenues. Some of the higher end cars are still there, and we covered those on EV Cruising last Sunday night, and we might do a bit more work in the higher end just to see what sort of deals are out there. But in the middle space, yeah, it's still moving, coming back to Facebook and a few other marketplaces slowly but surely, but very slow. So it will be very interesting to see how that market does recover and how quickly we get some stock back again, because we're just not getting that stock. So if you know anyone, there's a free listing coupon in the description down below. If you know anyone, let me know. We'll do whatever we can to sell. Prices are still higher. Some of the work that as we'll see, that Pickles have done as well as AutoGrab and a few other research companies, prices are certainly much higher, and still people are asking 10-20% higher pricing. So I'm not sure how long that'll last, but we shall see very soon. But moving on to some research that we found this week, and this is a monumental document which I'm looking forward to digging into a bit deeper and maybe sharing with you. Don't mind sharing that it's from Car Sales. They've spent a lot of money on this to really analyse what EV and used and new buyers are doing across the board from their research. That looks like they surveyed it externally, and of course they've got a new managing director, and maybe if I could fill in for a couple of days. I don't know, just perhaps there's an opportunity there for me to fill in. I'm not sure, but thanks to Craig Car Sales for putting this together. Craig, I should know his name, Craig Fraser. We don't know Craig, but I really appreciate you putting this data together. But this was the chart which really fascinated me. And of course, we do a lot of work ourselves. All jokes aside, we are studying all sorts of things about what would be best for amazing EV buyers and sellers to help them in their journey to try and find an EV. So Car Sales Research House surveyed 2,000 people, as you do. Got a lot of data from different places. Put this chart together, which is a very, very interesting chart, because believe it or not all EV buyers, not all car buyers, not all new car buyers are the same. There's quite a few differences. Of course, they need to put it on a table and try and work out what exactly it all means. And interestingly, they've put this buyer mindset chart together, mapped on confidence level and whether the primary journey needs are more rational or emotional. Now, this also translates into how long it potentially takes to make a decision as well, because it does take 4 or 5 months from starting point, as they worked out, to buying and ownership. And there's a lot of circling back and forth, and very interesting. It's not just a linear process, but they've they've narrowed it down to some particular types of people. I reckon I'm somewhere between a sniper and an analyst. Rationally, Mrs. Amazing, you might agree with me there. Perhaps you might be the first to agree. Sniper in terms of getting the smartest deal, just locking on to something and being pretty savvy about what you think you want. Again, in terms of having higher confidence, making decisions quickly, an analyst and drawing in some facts, but once you've got the facts, you make to jump to make that decision fairly quickly. G'day, Hal. How you doing? Here in spirit, only smashed with work. Well done, mate. What sort of buyer do you think you are? What sort of buyer mindset have you got? I'd be curious to find out. You've got the low confidence rookie, rational utility low. You've got the guardian needing peace of mind first. You've got the curator, my car must look and feel like me. And then you've got the purist, an amazing car as proof of my passion. So they've narrowed it down. I reckon your EV buyer is somewhere up on, in terms of low confidence and, well, somewhere maybe up in between expression identity, somewhere up the top there. I reckon they took a jump into the frying pan a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and they just thought, we'll go for it. I'm not sure if there was much rational utility. I think there was identity expression, and they didn't need much confidence. They just knew that this was the right thing for them. So I think there's a new category of EV buyer up the top left there, which could be explored further down the track. What do you guys think? It's I might do some more work on this because interesting that they've narrowed those buyer types down. They take those and they help them understand their market. Like every big company's doing a lot of money, spending a lot of money. So we're happy to see and just see what sort of buyers are out there. EV buyers, I reckon, are more top leftish, if anything else, so far on the journey. So let's wait and see. Joseph, what do you reckon you are? Let me know. And we're going to come back to this because it fascinated me. Maybe some things don't fascinate you as much as they fascinate me. But there'll be a bit more from that research to come because that sort of stuff I find really, really interesting in terms of helping our buyers and helping our sellers to try and find the right deal and the best place to find information and also help to provide that information as well along the buying process. Because as I say, it doesn't just happen overnight. People are taking 3, 4, 5 months, and with more choice of EVs, and well, one of the factors that maybe I didn't think came into some of their research was that we've got double the number of brands now in Australia, and we've probably got at least double the number of models than we had 5 years ago. So no wonder it's taking longer, because that selection point, that phase where people are trying to gather information and make an informed choice, is taking longer simply by fact that not only have we got to decide with lots more models, lots more brands, but also EV, hybrid, there's multiple fuel sources going into the mix as well. So not surprising that data is taking a lot longer now. But yeah, look forward to joining us next week. We've maybe got special guests and plenty more action before then. But in the meantime, we'll go out having a look at the cruise around the Amazing EV website and look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Roscoe. Thanks for joining us.